Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Bovine comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Bovine decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Bovine shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon.
Hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. I am your host, Nate Payo. Today I'm joined with Derek Gillette. Derek is the VP of Marketing for a people management software startup called Leader. He's also recently launched a virtual community called Management Test Kitchen, featuring recipes for leadership that actually work. He's seasoned, not salty, and speaking of salt, make sure to ask him about his recent exploration into natural fermentation. Welcome to the show, Derek.
I forgot I wrote that bio. That's...
Well, now we know what we have to start the question off with is what is your exploration to natural fermentation?
Well, I can tell you the latest development. The latest development is I've tracked down a ceramic crock. And so I'm jumping right into like a high level of expertise already on the topic, so we can work our way back from there. But essentially, a ceramic crock, I can do a lot of pickles all at once. And it's completely reusable, very sanitary. This is the same method that's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that's where I'm at now. I started in mason jars, glass mason jars, and we had probably about a 50-50 success rate. And of course, natural fermentation, not to get too in the weeds, but if you have had a pickle that uses vinegar, not naturally fermented, in my opinion. Okay, so natural fermentation is just water and salt. And sometimes you don't even need to add water because there's enough water in the vegetable itself. Yeah. They go in a jar. They sit at room temp for some period of time, some amount of an airlock, whether that's like a bubble on the top or just a weight to hold something under the water. And then you let that lactobacteria acid, something or other, eat away all the bad stuff, get the good stuff in there. And now it's probiotics.
So like kimchi is made that way and
yes.
Pickles and stuff like that. Very cool. How did you get into that as like I guess it's a hobby. Is that a hobby for you?
It is a hobby. And it relates really closely to, okay, so we're doing leadership development research right now, for Leader. And so one of the things you look at is like the habits and practices in the workplace. And one of those is goal setting. And so I was like, oh, goal setting. I've never really done that very well. What if we did that for our personal life just to try out some of the different ways to do goals? So we set goals for our personal life. And the big overarching theme that we had for our life was some amount of like self-sufficiency or homesteading.
Mm-hmm.
So we live out in 12 acres here just outside Seattle. And we had the ability where we're at, have a little greenhouse, put some plants in the ground. We've got chickens. We're keeping bees. We had goats, all kinds of different things like that. So it was like, man, we've got all the components for this. We just don't have any of the skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so the past year and a half have just been this big exploration into raising and growing your own food, trying to do it in abundance, focusing on soil composition and health, and then preservation.
Very cool. It sounds like it'll keep you busy. How do you have time for anything else, I wonder?
It's like how this is the thing I got to is the work that we do is these days, this is me, I think it's probably you. The work we do is very intense,
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we go remote, like a lot of us are remote right now. There's almost no boundaries. You could be checking email at all times. Now you got Slack, you're expected to collaborate. But then the work itself is just complex,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's like all these things we're piecing together. Now there's technology involved and unlimited audience segments that you can reach and whatever. It's so infinite. That if I don't have these downtime things that are just completely different, I just hit a wall.
Yeah,
Do you relate to that at all?
Yeah, completely. Like I'll start my day, I get out of bed about 4:30 and like I'm jamming like they try to do like my time in the morning is like the only time before anybody in the family's up. So like I do my workouts or I do my reading or I do like the quiet time stuff I need to get done. And if I'm a little bit off in time, it could just throw me off because like I won't have time to like shower before the first meeting. And then if I don't shower between the first meeting, I'm like, okay, maybe, I can get cleaned up around 9:30. And like it always ends up happening is like 6 o'clock hits and I'm just still jamming away. Haven't had a chance to like clean up for the day. And I'm like, it's dinner time, like putting this all down. And then I'm still like responding to emails till like 7 or 8 at 9 at night. And it's just like, there's nonstop. And I totally get like, since we're like at home, I find there never was the problem of not finding the motivation to work. It's just, there's no transition. Like I would get in my car, used to get in my car and drive home. Mind switch flips, like you're going home, like it just changed. And like when I'm just at home, I'm just like, how do you transition? Like, it's weird. It's a weird space to be in.
Well, that's right. And I don't know. I remember the days when you make the drive home, you make the transition. I remember the days when I worked in an office and you would close the office door and that was your transition because you couldn't check email at home.
Uh-huh.
Like it just wasn't a thing.
Yep.
Like you're just like, I'm done for today. Like that was a thing. It was forced upon you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't check it. Let me ask you a question about your morning routine because I'm curious about it. Have you always been a 4 a.m. person or did you work up to that?
I worked up to that and I've always been like a morning person per se. Like I always did my better thinking in the morning, my better productivity in the morning, but it was more like daylight morning versus like very early. I guess when I was like 13, 14, I had a morning paper route. We had to get up like 5 a.m. and fold the newspapers and have them all delivered by 6, but I hated getting up that early. But when I had my son 3.5 years ago, I was at the heaviest I'd ever been. And I was like, I need to get to the gym and I need to figure things out. And what I was not having much luck at doing was I was commuting for about an hour to get to work. And if I didn't leave the house by like 6 a.m., it would take me 90 minutes to get to work. So if I left at 6:30, I'd get there at 8. But if I left at 6, I'd get there at 7. So I was like kind of like I need to leave by 6. But I was trying to figure out like how to work out this routine of going to the gym in the morning. I was like, it's not really time to do it in the morning before I have to be there at 8. And at lunch didn't really work. And by the time like the day was over, I was like, oh, it's too late. I'm too tired. I would never go. So I was in this like rut of not being able to get it going. And then when I had my son, he was getting up every couple hours for the first 6 months. And like, it was like, he'd go to bed at like 8, and he'd get up at 10, 12, 2, and 4, and then 6. And so, like, I'd get up at 4, and I'd be like, well, I would change his diaper, and I'd give him my wife to feed him. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, go to bed for like 20 minutes because I have to like start getting ready and go to work, or if I have to leave
Right.
bed. So I was like, well, I'll just leave right now and go to the gym. And I don't know, because of that, I started kind of getting more in a habit of doing 4:30. And like, I follow Jocko Willink on Instagram and some of those stuff. And he's always a believer. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like ex-Navy SEAL, and he teaches a lot of leadership. And his thing is like, discipline equals freedom. Like, you need to do the things you don't want to do anyways. And that's like getting up and go to the gym even on the days you don't want to go. And I just like kept hearing his mind, or his voice in my mind in the mornings, like, just get up and go, just get up and go. And I knew that if I got up and I just went to um, the gym, I would go through the motions, I'd get it done. So like, I don't know, somewhere between that, like all happening, like all at the same time, just kind of got me in this routine of always doing that. Now that I've been stay at home, it hasn't worked so well. Like, I don't, like, again, I don't have that transition. So I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to go like to the gym. Like, I'll just start working on this work stuff and skip it. So I also need that transition of leaving the house, going to the gym and working. So it's a weird dynamic for sure, being home all day, every day.
Well, it makes me think. So your transition story here, it makes me think just about like how change is like brought about in each of our lives. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is it that drives meaningful change? And it seems so often to me that for the most part, like, change is almost forced upon us. And maybe it's like a situation change, like the son is born, or like a commuting change, or it comes down to like avoiding pain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, there's a greater pain that we're avoiding. And so now we've got to do something. I think what's rarest of all is change that's necessitated by simply passion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a desire for something different that's not necessarily pain driven. It's like passion driven.
Well, maybe it's the maybe it's still pain driven in the sense of avoidance of pain, like avoidance of regret. Like, if you
Yeah.
have a passion, like, I really want to do this, and you go, well, what's going to make me get up and continue doing this thing I'm very passionate about? And you go, well, I'm really jazzed about it, just like so interested in it. But there'll always be days where you don't feel like doing it. So why would you keep doing it? And I think it's because you might live with regret of like, why didn't I do that thing I was really, really passionate for? Maybe that fear of regret could be
Yeah.
lingering. I don't know, but like, I totally get you. Like, when you're super excited and you just like consumed with something, and you just like, oh my god, the time went by. Like, where'd the day go? I was like, it's just like I didn't think twice about not eating or like doing what I
Yeah.
needed to do. It's a weird space, but I don't know what motivates that.
I I read a little book, and it's like an excerpt from a larger book. Um, at the start of this year, so December 2019, it called "A Dying Man's Regrets," and it was just this person's kind of journal entries. He couldn't write at the time, so he was just verbally speaking. A French minister, I believe, and he was just giving the account of his life and like things that he regretted or how is he reflecting back on it. And one of the things he said to me that really stood out, and this relates back to waking up early, so you're going to
Hmm.
appreciate the tie-in there. But he said, like, there's this tendency. He said it in old French minister language, so I'm going to butcher it. But he said there's a tendency to like just go off of impulses or just kind of like whims or feelings. Like, you kind of have a desire for something, and then once the feeling strikes, you do it. And so
Hmm.
it's like, I may have this general feeling of like, I should exercise in general in life. And then you go day by day. It's like, maybe I do, maybe I don't. It's based off of kind of the circumstances of the day, if I've got time, if I feel like it. And so you've got this general desire for exercise, but you don't make it a habit or practice. He said there's something really honoring to carve out time like specific time, even when you don't feel like it, even when it seems forced. And his was in regards to like your personal time before God, right? Like studying the scriptures and in prayer. It's like, it's easy to just go by whim and feeling and circumstance, but there's something really honoring to God or whoever, now, to kind of have that time carved out and do it no matter how you feel.
I would agree with that a lot.
Yeah.
And recently, time management has been a focus of mine. And because I got like so much going on, I've always been a to-do list. Like I write everything down I need to do, but I've learned over time, like if I have a to-do list of 20, it's too big. Like there's a list of like I keep it a reminder list of things I need to refer back to that I might need to do, but I always tried to keep my to-do list of like about 5, because if I was like, hey, if I got these 5 things done today, I would feel like I was making the right progress. And along the course of the day, I'd probably add 2 or 3 things to it. So if I just had this running list that was really big, I'd never get it done. But I've started to feel like really overwhelmed recently because I was like not getting my to-do list checked off. And I was just like, okay, free time or downtime, like what's the thing I needed to get done? And I'm like, I don't know which to work on. So I was like, this isn't really working out too good. So I started writing out my day from the moment I get up to the moment I'm turning it off for the night. And I write down if I have to drive somewhere, which isn't really anywhere right now, when I'm eating my breakfast, when I'm eating my lunch, and I fill all those in, I fill in all my meetings, and then I have the spaces, and I say, okay, in these spaces, now I'm going to insert the tasks that I want to do. So the ones I want to do first, I kind of put in the morning, or if I say, hey, this one's going to take a lot of thinking, I'm going to go here. This one's like some phone calls I got to make or something that's tedious but doesn't really require a lot of brain power. Maybe I'll put them in a little bit in the afternoon when I usually don't have my creative juices going or my doing skills. And what I found is like this overwhelm at the end of the day isn't there because I'm not thinking. Because I always do it right before the day is over, so that my day for the next day is planned. My evening's not spent in constant thought of what's going to happen. Okay. And in the morning, I just open it up and go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And I look through it. And I mean, it flexes. It's not like super, super rigid. But what I found is I'm getting more of the things done. And the things, like you said, the things I wanted to carve out time for, which was like reading, journaling, the workout stuff, it started happening better because it was just like, it was there. It wasn't just kind of like randomly, like if I feel like it. It was like, it's carved out, this is what we're going to do. And all of a sudden I just felt like everything fell into places better, and my anxiety level just dropped immensely from it, just because I wasn't just constantly like, there's a ton of things to do, how do I do it, I don't know, I'm like overwhelmed, that's why I feel like it was just overwhelmed, like which one do I take the box and check off right now?
Yeah, you're doing this with your hands, which makes me think this is an actual real life piece of paper you're opening
right here. It's in this book.
That's incredible.
I've always been a handwritten kind of person for notes and things I want to do. Like I've tried to be like a Evernote person or a OneNote, and it's just like I'll be like, cool, this is organized, and then I'm like, I gotta load up my computer to do this. Like I don't know. It just always gravitated back towards handwriting. And I had this teacher in college, and we were taking drafting classes, and he was showing, this would be kind of stupid, but we used to do these cross sections of what a house looked like from a foundation up to the roof. And he like, the only way you guys are going to remember this is if you draw it. So he'd make us draw it, because he'd be like, the paper to the pencil to your hand to your brain makes you learn it. So like we would just draw these things, and like I don't know, something about like written down. Like even if I write something down, I rarely have to go back and refer to what I wrote down to remember to do it. It's just the act of writing it down. It like solidifies it in my brain, and then it also takes that thought out of space, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So it's tucked away.
I would agree with that. I don't have any scientific evidence to support it, but I feel like I'm a Moleskine or other kinds of journal. Like usually have a pencil behind my ear. Like I'm the same, but it's like stuff that you type. It's like I'll read something I wrote last week, and I'm like, sounds great. I'm like, who wrote this? And they'd be like, I did.
Very cool. So we're a little bit off script, but that's okay. I've been having a good conversation with you. I always like to ask my guests, what is your thoughts on luck? Are people lucky?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. And look, my first reaction to the word luck is it's a word I don't use. I try not to use it in my vernacular. And the reason for that is so for myself, I have a Christian worldview, which would say that there's maybe no such thing as luck, that there are preordained circumstances and events that are happening. There's an actual creator who's designed everything. And so to use the word luck is to, in a certain sense, and maybe unintentionally, kind of downplay the role of a creator or designer in everyday life. But if you go deeper on the word luck, you have a lot of other things involved, such as like chance and risk and control. And I think those are the things that we really talk about when we talk about luck. And so I believe in chance and risk and control, but I don't use the word luck. That's my short answer.
Well, I like it, and I like that you believe that there's some preordainedness to it. And I grew up in a Christian home, and I know, and I like this joke, and maybe it relates a little bit to the preordainedness. And maybe you probably heard this one before, but it's this guy is in this town, and it's flooding, and it's up to his like getting up to the first level of his house, and somebody drives by and they say, hey, it's flooding, the waters are picking up, it's going to be hard to get out of here, you want to get in my car and drive away. And the guy says, no, God's going to save me, I trust in God, God will provide. So the guy drives off. A few hours later, the water's getting up to the second level, and by now they can't drive around. There's boats, and this guy comes in a boat, and he says, hey, if you want me to get on this boat, I'll save you. And he goes, no, I'm trusting God. God's going to save me. Okay, guy leaves. And then, a little later on, the water's still climbing. They're up to the roof now. And the guy's on the roof, and a helicopter flies by like, hey, we'll drop a ladder down, climb up the ladder. We'll fly you out of here. God will save me. Or God will save you. Or no, he goes, we'll save you. No, I can't do that because God's going to save me. God's going to provide. And I'm going to trust in God that he's going to take me. So needless to say, the water's rise up, floods, and he dies. And he goes to heaven, and he says, God, why did you let me down? He's like, I called out that you're going to save me 3 times. And he said, I did. Who do you think sent the guy in the boat? Who do you think sent the guy in the and all this stuff? I thought that was kind of funny because it's like, it's true. Like there's some preordainedness to stuff, but there's also being aware of the signs, the opportunities that are presented in you and taking advantage of those. So you have to be, like you said, there's chance, the things that just happen because of, really random circumstances. And there's risk of like, hey, is this something that makes sense to reach out and do? And what was the last one you said? Chance, risk, and control. And I think that has, like, what do you have control over, and do you make decisions based on your experiences that take you down this path that maybe it's not as risky as it seems because you have the experience and the fortitude have gotten you there to persevere through it. So I don't know. That's a pretty cool answer. I like it. Anyways, let's talk about your people management software startup called Leader. What is Leader?
Leader is people management software. The end.
The end. That's great. Where can we find this? It's very compelling.
Look, it's let me think about how to talk about it. And I want to relate it back to what we were talking about earlier with the journaling, the planning and the carving out time. I started doing research for the Leader team back in July of last year, helping them out with, doing interviews, industry research, statistics, everything around management, employees, productivity, workplaces, just like all of that stuff. There's endless amounts of research out there, and then just talking to people about their experiences. And it was like across the board, what you hear is this sentiment that says something like this, like, I wish I had more time to invest in my people. I know I should be doing more in the area of people development, but now is just not a good time because we have this deadline, or like I just have to execute, or we're short on resources. And so it was never really a conversation about desire. It was always a conversation about intentionality, right? And I think that's kind of like the key word in like everything we're talking about here is like intentionality, and making sure you carve out time for the most important things, like the top priorities, etc. And so when we thought about, well, what type of software could you really implement at an organizational level to see real people development? And we knew it had to start with building the habit of intentionality, and more specifically, the habit of intentionality down to the manager to employee level. And so kind of the heart of the software is managers and employees, helping them to just have better conversations. In typically the weekly one-on-one is the format, knowing that builds a better relationship, leading to stronger rapport, which should bleed over then into team dynamics and collaboration and things like that. Then opportunities for learning, challenge, and growth as you begin to execute on projects and be recognized for the unique strengths that you bring to the team. Then there's clarity towards the execution. Again, these are our most important priorities, and this is how we're going to get there. It's goal setting now. And then the ability to look back over time and measure progress. Like, did we actually do what we said we were going to do? If not, let's reflect and stop. What can we learn for next time? And now it's a cycle of continuous improvement that happens, hopefully, at least on a 90-day cadence in the form of a review of some kind instead of the typical annual performance review. And so that's kind of the model. And what we're doing now is kind of taking that model and backfilling and building a piece of software around it. And so at this point, you can do meetings in it, you can do goals in it, feedback, learning assignments, and then performance reviews will be next.
Very, very cool. Like I'm a big fan of like knowing where you're charting your path, figuring out what you want for development. Like I like we talk a lot of times about goals. Like, oh, we gotta set goals, and I feel like goals get they get confused. They're like, okay, we're gonna do this for the year, and a lot of times you might not have influence on like those overall company goals. And so like depending on your role, like you go, well, how can I achieve these goals, or what should my personal goals be? Or maybe goals are just like generic things, like you say, okay, I want to make a certain amount of money, or I want to have this type of car. And I feel like those aren't like a strong enough desire to go after. Like you want it to be a why. And I started changing my goals to like a vision, like not like, do I want this, thing, but think about this experience that I want to be living my life. And so like I explain it this way, like if you want a Ferrari, to have a Ferrari, just say like, I have a Ferrari and I look like I'm cool and I got this Ferrari and I can, drive around town and people are going to admire me because I drive a Ferrari. You're probably going to be let down when you get the Ferrari because that moment's going to be fleeting. But if you're a Ferrari guy and you like going to Ferrari shows, and you like hanging out with other guys that drive Ferraris, and you like going to these Ferrari endurance races, and you like going to the Ferrari auctions, you like the whole lifestyle of being in the Ferrari club with people that are like-minded, you're not so much you get in the car because you want the car. You're wanting an experience, and that experience is in alignment. And when that's a bigger impact for you, you're going to go to it. And then once you kind of evaluate that vision, then you start backing up. You go, what are the things I need to do to take me there? And then you start breaking into the goals. And I think the goals, when you start having them be too far out, they're too vague. They need to be, like you said, 90-day kind of like sprints. What are these things that are going to accumulate and build up into this massive vision I'm doing? But you're right. When we start talking about, hey, we got deadlines, we got this is more important. Like, do you want me to go do training seminar, or do you want me to get my project done? Do you want me to have a performance review, or do you want me to be at this meeting? And then
That's
all of a
right.
sudden you go, yeah, hey, this stuff gets kind of pushed to the shove. And then what really happens is 2 minutes before it's supposed to be due, you're like, hey, we need to have your employee review real quick. Like, you're doing good, check, good, check. And then a lot of times employees, they don't know where they want to go in their professional, like, what are my goals supposed to be? I don't know. Like, where do you want to go with your life? Like, where do you want to take it? What are the skills that you're lacking to
That's
take
right.
the career path you want to go? And sometimes it's hard to encourage people to think a little bit about what they want to do and accomplish. So I think that would be like a fantastic program, especially the idea of carving it out. And when you say, hey, look, this is just when it happens, maybe it'd be a bold thing to tell a whole company of 500 people, like, on Monday, June 15th, you're shutting down for 3 hours and everybody's doing their stuff. Like, I don't know, but I
Yeah.
think you're right. When they are given the time and they're a priority to carve out, they're going to get done, and they're going to be done with more intent. And I think that would be a better way of doing it.
Yeah, because our default is reactionary. Like, unfortunately, like, we just kind of like move along in life and then react to circumstances, and whatever is most pressing, we do that. And then, unfortunately, the stuff that really matters, whatever, like talking about developing employees here, like, it just gets to, like, we're walking in a room, we didn't look at the agenda, we don't know what they're talking about, and then it just kind of comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were hearing from because we studied the manager perspective, but then we went to hear the employee perspective too. And I'll tell you the most powerful kind of internal feeling that I heard from employees in healthy work environments was this sentiment that it would express itself in different ways, but the general sentiment being, I feel invested in.
Mm-hmm.
In maybe like if you're a little bit of a cynical kind of employer listening or whatever, you're like, all right, salary and benefits, knew it or whatever. But it's like, investment goes deeper than just the dollars, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a part of it. But there's other ways to invest in people. And we know this in our personal lives, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
relationships that really matter, the ones that last, the ones that are healthy, we've invested into those people intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, that's just my encouragement. It's a vision I see, is to be able to create that in organizations all around the country, at least.
So where are you at in the process, and like, when does this launch take place? What kind of is happening?
Okay, so we've been in kind of a private beta since about October, November of 2019. We ended the beta are we still in June? We're still in June. So we ended the beta in June, and we've now been officially selling since kind of mid-May. So mid-May, June, we kind of started making that beta selling transition. And Goals just launched today, actually, which is pretty cool. We've been testing it internally. And then reviews will come out sometime next quarter, I think.
Awesome. How many companies are you working with right now in beta?
We had just under 80 in beta.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What kind of like business sizes we're testing it? Like employee counts, I guess, or maybe dollar volumes?
Yeah, we were looking at employee count because we saw the more employees you have, the more complex your people departments are, and especially from a human resources standpoint. So 10 employees to about 100 as a max is really what we're focusing on. So enough size that you have actual teams, right? It's not just one person managing everybody. You've got teams that are building and developing now, but not so big that there's just incredible complexity in your organization.
Yeah. So how did you decide that you wanted to work with a startup? And I don't know if you were part of the founders team or you're brought on board, but it takes a certain type of person to decide, like, hey, I want to abandon comfort and safety, and I want to go work for a startup, and who knows what's going to happen and where it's going to go. But we maybe will change the world, or we may go down in flames. But who knows? I'm all on board. Sign me up. I would love it. Where did you what was the inspiration for you to kind of take that little path in life?
Okay, cool. So I'll tie it back into two things we talked about. one, risk, and then the other, remember you just a second ago, you're talking about goals that are attached a little bit more to a mission or a why.
Yeah.
Those are like easier to obtain or like to keep your motivation for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say just in general, I am very open to risk when I feel a calling towards it. And there's my Christian faith talking again, right? Like just believe that like the Lord works all things for our good. To those who believe are called according to his purposes. And so, look, I do that with discretion and maturity, understanding like the challenges and like what skills I have to bring to the table, right? But then you feel like the call, and then you're like, okay, I feel good with the risk at this point. So I'm good with the risk here. And then with the mission, I would rather devote my life to something worthwhile. You know, honestly, I thought that I was going to go into the ministry at one point, and I was on the pastoral track, and then that just ended up not working. I went back to business school, got a degree, and now I just find kind of like that. There's plenty of ways to be on mission in a workplace setting. You don't have to be in a church or something like that for that. So we talk about like what we're doing here. If it's just a piece of software that helps you do better meetings, like, I don't know, that's kind of boring. But if it's this bigger mission, like we were talking about, of like, man, managers become coaches and employees are given a voice and they feel invested in, and doing that at scale, like that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're talking about calling. First, I got a few things to comment on that. Like this idea of calling has been resonating with me a lot lately. And it's this idea of like, I've had an entrepreneur journey, like desire, like a lot of my life. I felt like I was supposed to do more. And every time I'd start it, I'd abandon it, discount it, fail, whatever. And I'm not going to do that again. Just go back to doing your job, minding your business. Like just do it. Don't do it. And then the itch comes back, and you're just itching and you're itching. And I'm like, okay, I got to do it. And this time around, I thought like, hey, you know what I was probably doing? Like if I have this calling, it's got to be answered. But what I was probably doing in the past was trying to force an answer and not being open to see where the journey takes me, the learning along the way, and feeling what it is. And along that path, I was like kind of saying like, what makes me fulfilled? And it kind of related to the visions and the goals and stuff like that. And it's like every time I got that raise or I got that, next title change or the next promotion or whatever in the career wise, they're great goals, and they were good in the moment. But then what happens is like, you're already on to the next one. You're like, what is the next thing that I can accomplish for me? And you're like, is this what I'm in? Is this like circular race? And then I started going like, I like helping people. Like when I started building my network and it started getting bigger, and I was connecting people within people, and like, oh, hey, this person over here really wants to meet this, get in off this company over here, and I can make an introduction and they do business together. Then I'm like, that was stoked. I love that. Like, I want to do more of that. And then I was like, you know what? It's really about serving people and helping people, which brings me back to this thing that you're talking about. Like, like say, hey, I'm in a software startup company. It's like, you are, but what you described was not software. Like you described a people process. You're saying, hey, what if I could make your company have more engaged employees, more loyal employees, more invested employees, and show you a way to carve out this thing and really improve people's lives as a whole. Like what if somebody goes from hating their job to loving their job, and they're able to be more engaged at home? Like there's such an impact across the world. And then you're just like, hey, we have this process. We can make your employees better employees. We're going to make a huge impact. And then there's a software that makes it easier for you to manage and use it and carve out time. You're like, hey, that to me is like you're selling I want to say I don't even know if it's selling anything. You're just like, hey, here's a better way of impacting people's lives in a positive manner that just happens to use software as a tool to accomplish this end goal. So I'm kind of digging that.
Yeah, I like when they don't let me do very many demos, but like when they used to let me do demos, then I used to tell people, you don't actually need this software to do what we're talking about. Like you literally could do this with pen and paper. You could cobble together solutions. Like you could use Google Docs for some of this. Like absolutely. like what we're talking about is bigger than just a piece of software. It's like a worldview. It's just the intentionality behind it. What the reason software helps though is because it now allows you to do this consistently and scale across teams. And whether a manager has great abilities or they're just getting started in that role, whether they know their employees well or not, software is able to compensate for that, right? And now you've got visibility as to the success of these efforts, rather than having to go one by one to each manager and be like, hey, pull out your notepad, let's review kind of how these things have been going, or whatever that process might look like. So software is just there to make it easier to bring it all together.
Awesome stuff. So I got to ask you, what does the words all in mean to you around an idea or an outcome?
Okay, a good friend and colleague just sent me this article today, so it's timely. And it's just about this idea of obsession. And that genius, in this author's perspective, came down to people who just have this kind of like obsession that doesn't regard like normalcy. Like they're not thinking about, oh, what's the usefulness of this obsession? Or what's the light at the end of the tunnel of this obsession? They're just obsessed for obsessed sake about a specific topic or thing. And like I think we all know, we've met people, and like you might say, Derek's really obsessed with natural fermentation. Like that's weird. Like what does he hope to get out of that? Like that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't say I am, but that's a good example there. And so kind of thought about this idea of like obsession as a type of all in. But when we talk about obsession, you're really talking about two things. One, time, which is precious. More precious than time, though, is attention, right? Because we now have so many different things happening all at once. We can give something time, but not give it attention. So attention, is a super scarce resource. And so I would say my first part of my answer to all in is obsession that demands your time and your attention. Two, because I'm going to come back to a Christian worldview one more time, is the most precious thing we have, more than time, more than attention, is our life, right? And so we're talking about going all in on something. We say, greater love has no man than this, then he lays down his life for his friend. And so to me, the ultimate all in is laying down your life, both figuratively and literally, right? Like figuratively meaning not my interests, not my passions, not my pursuits. And you may answer and say, like, if you are not of Christian worldview, you may say my family's, right? Or the greater good. For a person like me, I would say the Lord's, right? Like it's not about me anymore. It's about somebody else. And then literally being willing to lay down your life as well, if it ever came to it.
I love it. That's a great way to answer that question. It reminded me of this guy. I think he's an old gym guy, power lifter type guy, and he said like there's a difference between like passion and obsession. And like passion is when like you're really excited for something and like your friends and family are like happy that you found your passion. And obsessed is when they like think you have a problem. Like like it's gone from passion to obsession, and like you've just basically given everything, like you said, your life, dedicated your life for this thing, and nothing else matters. So very cool, very great answer. Now I want to find out a little bit, there's probably a very specific person that's out there looking for this software, or they might be a better fit for the company. So really, who is your target audience when you're out there talking that would find Leader useful and beneficial to their organization?
That's right. So at this point, we're doing a top-down implementation. So if you're an executive leader, like kind of in a CEO, founder, executive role in a company 10 to 100 employees, that's who we would want to be talking to. Secondarily, if you're in a human resources position as well in a company of about those sizes, and you're trying to advocate or champion this kind of people development program, but have been struggling to find the resources, we would love to talk to you as well.
Awesome stuff. So where can people find you if they want to get connected?
Okay, we did the cool startup thing and bought a domain that's missing a vowel. So leader.com, leadr.com is the website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That'll save you about I don't know, leader would probably save you about $100,000 in buying a domain name that wasn't
That's right.
a real big word, you know. Where else could they find you? Where can they personally find you?
LinkedIn is where I hang out more than anything else. So Derek Gillette on LinkedIn. And then you mentioned Management Test Kitchen at the start. We didn't get time to talk about it, which is totally fine. But it is a digital community that we've made for people to just learn more about leadership principles and best practices. We took the kitchen concept to just kind of be fun about it. And so just like you would do a recipe for great chocolate chip brownies or whatever you're into, here we're going to have recipes for effective goal setting, recipes for powerful one-to-one meetings. I don't know, it's just kind of a fun take on it. So recipes.leader.com. You can come find me there.
Awesome. Cool stuff. So those links will be in the show notes. You'll be able to connect with Derek. Reach out to him. Tell him where you found him. Say hi. Ask him what he's going on. And if you're one of those people that might be a right fit, definitely have a further conversation. I'd love to have our chat here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Nate.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.